Hello, this is Molly Arthur with EcoBirth-Women for Earth and Birth. And I'm sitting here with Diana Paul from Love Delivers. And we're talking about a birth revolution. And we're such revolutionaries. So Diana, why do we need a birth revolution?
We need a birth revolution because, for instance, the USA is ranked 50th in the world for infant mortality. This is not acceptable. It's not really widely known that that is our ranking, but we're basically at the bottom of the industrialized world for infant mortality, and yet we spend more than any other country by far, twice as much as the next country down on health care. So we need a birth revolution economically. We need one to make it safer for our mothers and our babies. The women in the United States, the maternal mortality ranking for the U.S. is 47. So that's not acceptable either. So we need a revolution economically, socially. We need to care for our mothers and babies. And then the third reason I feel personally that we need a revolution is that women are missing out on the very deep spiritual lessons that birth has to give. And by that I mean, when I gave birth, the first time I was essentially almost alone. There weren't any licensed midwives or doctors that would come to my home to help with the delivery.
So you didn't have a choice.
I didn't have a choice, and I wanted to have a home delivery. So basically, there I was. My husband read the law, and he said, well, it looks as though if we are alone, we won't be prosecuted. I was pretty upset by his use of that term, prosecution, because I wasn't thinking of it in those terms at all.
Legal terms.
No, I wasn't. I was just thinking, I want to be queen of the day. This is my birth, my way. And he was willing to help me with that. But what I learned from that, it was a very deep spiritual learning that it can be an ecstatic moment, an extremely empowering moment. And people talk about the pain, the this, the that. That doesn't last. I mean, for me, I didn't even have pain. I mean, it needs another name. It wasn't pain. It was it was an intense experience, but I wouldn't call it painful. We need another word for what happens at birth. But it was, as soon as the baby was there, it was the most ecstatic moment of my life. I couldn't even talk about it. It was so empowering and so ecstatic. And then when I talked to my girlfriends about their births, they were having cesarean sections. They were having births that left them depressed. They were not having this wonderful experience that I was having. So it was, I couldn't even talk about, my birth, because it just wouldn't have been very kind, around the majority of the women that I knew that weren't having that kind of experience.
Oh.
So I think we need a revolution economically, socially, and just for the health of women.
Yes. Oh, that's so fascinating. So now we're at the Birth Summit, the persecution of midwives as a human rights issue. So how does this connect with what you're telling me with the human rights issue?
Well, I think that every woman has the right to give birth. I mean, the baby is conceived usually in a very intimate setting, intimate moment, and it's their right to be private about that. And I think that birth being an exquisite experience is also an intimate one, and that the woman should have the right, and I think constitutionally she does have a right to privacy, but she should have the right to choose whoever is with her in that exquisite, intimate moment of birth. And I think that if she can birth in a place where she feels safe, where she doesn't feel observed, where she feels just very, very private, I think the birth will go a lot easier for her. I think that is the natural setting. You look at nature and animals. What do when they give birth? They don't go out, in the middle of the field. They find a burrow or a cave or someplace, and that is the instinct for giving birth, is to be very, very private and very But so
we have an instinctual longing and yearning and drive, actually, as a mammal, as a human, to be protected when we are birthing, and to be private when we are birthing. So as a legal issue, we're now talking about how to allow that to be a choice.
Well, some women prefer to have a midwife with them. It's much more low-key, less expensive. They feel they get better care. I'll talk about this. One midwife in Southern California who was recently arrested.
Oh my gosh!
She was set up. They came to her door. So she was a midwife's midwife. Any midwife who had a problem with a client or a difficult case, twins, breaches, that sort of thing, they would always call on this midwife. She was more experienced than anybody else in twins and breaches and difficult births, so she would often be called to
consult
or to be at the birth. So she felt that she didn't have a license, and she felt she was practicing under a religious exemption law. She felt protected by that. But there were others who didn't feel that that she wasn't licensed, she wasn't practicing legally. So what they did was they had like a little sting operation, and they sent a phony pregnant woman and man to her house, and they were talking about the birth. And as soon as she took a check from them in her hand, the couple disappeared, and police with guns drawn entered her house and arrested her.
Oh,
and it was
goodness.
very traumatic. Her husband's a minister. And so they're saying that she doesn't have a right to practice. Well, here is this tremendous asset to women and to babies and to birth being arrested. Now, I call that... that's a big mistake.
Yeah.
That's a mistake. We should treasure these people who, with all of that experience, because right now I think at most hospitals in the U.S., if you have twins or if you have a breech or something that they may consider difficult for them,
high risk is what they call it.
So what is that? That's a surgical operation
Right.
that becomes a cesarean section, it's called, a surgical birth. And that's the most expensive birth. It's the most risky kind of birth. Right. It's the potentially most damaging. And, we do have, 99% of the babies are born in hospitals. And so with this very poor ranking that we have, there's a little correlation between interventions
that are possibly medical, and what we're talking about as far as the mortality, maternal and baby mortality rates here in the United States.
Right. So we need these people who are experienced at what are called difficult births, or and in the past, were they called difficult births? They were just births. Women have babies. So
we're really looking to understand that the choice that women have should be broadened. What is available actually across the globe, from what I understand.
It should be broadened, yes.
And that's why the Birth Summit here is looking at how to change that, and using the word revolution is an important way to characterize it. So now I understand this revolution is nonviolent.
Grassroots, nonviolent, yeah. There are 4 little letters in the word revolution, LOVE, and so I'm looking at that as to be a keynote of this revolution, that I don't think that you can really lead people if you've got a big hammer over their head. I think that the way to lead is with love. And love is a very important part of birth, and it's the strongest power to take away fear. And I think that the problem we're having now with women culturally is that they're now afraid of birth. They've heard so many bad stories, or maybe they've had a bad experience themselves. And so we need to address those fears that are out there. And of course, the strongest power to alleviate fear is love. And so, if a woman can birth and just feel she's just wrapped in love, it's going to be a lot easier for her. And so the revolution should model that.
Exactly. So the revolution needs to be not a warlike one or a confrontational one, but a one with an offering of unconditional love to all women in all life. I love it. So, I love it. Yes. So, Diana, what would you want women to recognize and understand to enable them to have a loving birth and to be a part of this love revolution?
Well, I think take a deep breath and just be still. And I think women, if they can begin to listen to their instincts again, begin to listen inside, they will be guided. Their bodies will tell them, divine love will tell them what position to be in, how,
Trust their bodies.
They need to trust nature. This is a beautiful, exquisite design that can't be replicated. And if they can just trust the design and the designer, that this is really a good experience, one that they will cherish and love. And it is a pivotal. It's a transforming one. I mean, you have 9 months to prepare for this event, and it's important that you have those 9 months. And what do you do with them? Well, I would suggest that the biggest, most helpful thing to do in those 9 months is just to go deeper into your own spirituality, into your own listening to your own instincts, what your needs are, and to get rid of all the things that are maybe nagging, or maybe the relative that you had a argument with, maybe make up with that person. I know one woman who was, when she learned she was pregnant, she wrote to all of her relatives just to clear the decks, make sure there's just no negative feeling in her consciousness or theirs either, and so that the baby has like a clear path to come, and so that's very important.
Yeah. So be still in the love that has been offered, that is in the creation of what the baby, why the baby is there.
Exactly.
And that this is a normal and natural reaction to bringing beautiful life to Earth. Yeah. So with this birth summit, what are the actions that you're thinking that we women can do to move forward to enable this beautiful birthing?
Well, the summit that is happening is a legal summit, and that's not under my purview.
Right.
But we have developed a strategy, and it's we have a document. We have 50 ways. 50 ways,
yes,
because we're ranked 50th in the U.S., but we're calling it 50 ways to lead your lover, and this is the birth revolution. And so basically it's the idea of women becoming more public about their support of good birth practices. For instance, the WHO, the World Health Organization, said we should be no more than 10 or 15% cesarean sections in our country, but we're like 33%.
Oh.
Well, so women, for instance, one group that I filmed, they were a group of women belly dancing on the sidewalk in front of a big stately courthouse in Auburn, and they were standing next to a banner that said, "Why is the U.S. ranked 50th in the world for infant mortality?" So there they are, belly dancing, and the cars are going by and honking and waving, and But the thing is, most people don't realize that that is our ranking.
Yes.
And so, I mean, it's a way to bring attention to that. And another group of women, a group of black women, did a skit which draws attention to the fact that a black baby is twice as likely to die at birth than a white baby.
Oh, my
A
gosh.
black woman 5 times as likely to die in childbirth as a white woman. So they did a little skit about that.
In the United States.
In the United
Right.
States, yeah. So, so bringing those to light and making people conscious and aware that, oh, well, we have some work to do to, change things, make them better.
We need to change the structures and the institutions, but also the consciousness that women are capable to birth with love and in love.
Yeah, and it's important for the baby too. I mean, it's really important for the baby that a woman not be frightened, because all those, I mean, the baby is like is a dyad with the woman. Like the baby is one, and coming through the birth canal. I mean, I believe that the baby gets those emotions from the mother, and if she's afraid, then it's going to be more difficult for the baby too.
It's translated to the baby. So we're talking about the future generations here. We want to translate and give love to our children and future generations, and not be fearful and stressful, but and birth as the moment of the threshold of bringing this child to this realm for our love and care.
I have a friend who did a video about infant massage, and I said, well, did you get the first massage? And he's going, what do you mean? I said, well, when the baby's coming through the birth canal, they come in and out and out, and that's the first massage. And it sets them up for their immune system. That's when they're getting, getting all of their immunization from
All the gut flora that they need.
That's when they're getting it.
Yeah.
And if you do it a different way, a surgical birth, then you're depriving the baby of that.
Yeah. So we need to understand what are the implications of interfering with this kind of natural birth that is important for the child. And so understanding how that works for the future peaceful and nonviolent world.
Yeah.
And the legacy that we're leaving for our children and grandchildren is so important. So Diana, I want to thank you so much for our time together.
It was wonderful. Thank you, Molly.
You're so welcome. Thank you.
Delightful.